In this lesson, we will learn how to cycle and blend our animation clips. Let's say we jump back to the Motions Manager. Alright, sweet. So from there, what I'd like to do is go ahead and have both the idle and jump last a little bit longer. Let's go ahead and start with the idle. You'll notice that once we select the clip and its properties load into the Attributes Manager, we could actually go ahead and have this clip loop by adjusting our loop count. Let's go ahead and find the loops property. So let's say we have this last for about 3 more loops. I'll go ahead and set the loop count to 3. And notice how the clip is now stretched to last that much longer. Cool, let's go ahead and do this. We'll grab the jump and we'll slide that to about, let's say 121, so we can prepare to transition from our idle to the jump. Alright, sweet. So now, watch this. When we play the animation back, you'll notice that we get a longer idle. Fantastic. And now we go right into the jump. Cool. So next, let's go ahead and do this. What I'd like to do is go ahead and show you something else we can do with our motion clips. And this is also to make sure that this doesn't create confusion. Here's what I mean. Let's go ahead and grab our clip and let's go ahead and set our loop count back to 0. You'll notice that we can actually go ahead and drag our clip out, and when we do, we're changing the clip's percentage. So when we start to drag that out, it's actually adjusting the timing of our clip. So you'll notice that the animation is going to move much slower. That actually looks kind of funny. However, if we were to drag the clip in the opposite direction, this is how we can speed up the clip's timing. So when we hit play, our idle should move super fast. Alright, so just wanted to point that out to you. Even though that clip is stretching out, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is looping. It might mean that it is slowing down a bit or speeding up depending on the length of the clip. Now, how do we get it back to 100%? Well, notice when we zoom into our clip, we could actually go ahead and just double click on the percentage and set it to whatever we'd like. So I'll go ahead and set that back to 100. Cool. And now we could set loops back to 3. How about the jump? Let's go ahead and take care of that next. I'd basically like the animation to last all the way to our maximum time, which is 200. Let's go ahead and grab our jump clip and set loops to 2. Wonderful. Now here's what's not so cool. Let's go ahead and hit play. So after the idle, when we get into our jump, you'll notice that the animation will continue to move back to the origin. So in order to make sure that this works correctly, we have to do just a few things. One, we need to make sure that the jump clip is set to relative loop. So that'll look for any function curves that should continue in a certain direction, in this case forward, and it will kind of make sure that the F curve will constantly have an offset. So after we have left the F curve, it will look at that last value and continue to add more until the animation advances forward. There's one more thing we have to do though. Let's go ahead and right click on our clip and choose Show in F curve mode. So have a look. We do have access to our keyframes. Let's go to our F curve menu and we'll turn off Show All Tracks. We'll now go ahead and focus on our position Z track. I'll go ahead and back up a bit, just so you can see how the animation extrapolates. So you can see why we get this type of pop back to the origin whenever we leave this clip. Let me go ahead and show you this. Even though we have relative loop on, the animation is still going to jump back to the origin. But all we need to do now is jump back to our F curves manager. Let's go ahead and grab our keys. Let's go to Functions and change our track before and track after settings so that they now will create an offset. So let's go ahead and choose Offset Repeat for track before and track after. Cool. So watch this. When we play the animation, there's our idle, and you'll now see that the turret will continue to jump forward. So remember, there are 2 steps that we have to consider. We have to make sure that relative loop is on, and then we have to go into the function curve and make sure that we set the function curve to offset repeat. Nice. All right, great. Now, if you notice that the animation doesn't quite pop back to the origin when it should, when we go back to frame 0, no worries. If you go ahead and scrub and then kind of pop back to 0, that kind of refreshes things. So no worries. It's actually really simple to fix. Great stuff. So we've learned how to cycle our clips. Now what I'd like to do is go ahead and create a transition. So this is actually really straightforward. Underneath the motion system menu, we'll grab the make transition tool, and we'll now drag from the clip we'd like to create the transition from to the clip that we'd like to create the transition to. So that's from the idle to our jump. And take a look, we now have this automated wait that blends from one clip to the next. You can see that our lower clip, the jump, is disabled until we get to the clip. So right now its wait is set to 0. If we were to go ahead and drag right here in our timeline, you'll notice that we start to see our transition, the values start to change. And then once we leave the top clip, you'll see that its value is brought to 0 and our lower clip is brought to 100%. So there you have it. Now what I'd like to do is go ahead and show you how to create a manual transition. Simply because we'll be baking all of this data into just one clip, and then I'll go ahead and show you how to extract the animation from your clip, essentially how to bake everything out back to keyframe data. So that's going to be really cool. So in order to create a manual transition, let's go ahead and first do this. We'll turn off our make transition tool. Let's go ahead and select it again to uncheck it. Now let's go ahead and turn off auto key, and we'll clear out both of our wait ports. So I'll go ahead and select layer 0. We'll find the wait value parameter. We'll hold down Control Shift and click. And let's make sure that its wait is set to 100%. Let's go to our next layer. Again, we'll hold down Control Shift and click to remove all keyframes from the wait. And then we'll go ahead and set the value to 100%. That's fine because the animation is not going to play until we get to the clip anyway, so that's going to work out very well. All right, sweet. So what I'd like to do now is basically go ahead and grab the idle, and I'd like to go ahead and create a keyframe right here in about frame 121 where the jump begins. Let's go ahead and grab layer 0. We'll hold down Control and we'll click to create our keyframe there. Now, let's say we go ahead and move to the end of our idle. So that's on about frame 131. And then we'll go ahead and set our wait to 0. Again, we'll hold down Control and click. And now we've created a manual transition. So take a look at that. When we hit play, you'll now start to see our animation go right into the jump from the idle. Something else important to keep in mind is that if you ever notice sliding when you start to use the Make Transition tool, so that's if you decide not to animate this transition manually. Here's where the sliding comes from. It's actually from the type of mixing mode we have for each layer. So when I go ahead and select layer 0, take a look at the mixing mode. It's actually set to mixing, meaning that the system is going to do its best to mix the data from one clip to the next. But again, sometimes we get sliding that way. To fix that, what I like to do is going to make sure that the mode for both clips is set to absolute, meaning that whatever we've animated in that clip, that's what we see and nothing more. Great. So once we've done that, now we should have a pretty stable transition from one animation to the next. How cool. So again, in this lesson, we've learned how to cycle our clips. We've also learned how to blend them manually and with the Make Transition tool.